There are so many tracks from so many games that I'm asked to listen to and discuss. I wanted to compile some of these because I feel like they are individually unique, and I think that it would be really interesting to not necessarily have a through line of these because they're all very individual pieces, but sort of put them all in one place. And so today I wanted to start with a bunch of stuff that I've just never heard of. Yeah, so Hotline Miami is a game that I have sort of seen from the periphery, but I've never actually played it. Obviously, what we get here right away is your 1980s. You get your fast rhythm, you get your bright lights, your neon color signs, you get effervescence. Now, of course, I think this is in juxtaposition to the fact that in Hotline Miami, if I recall correctly, you are going on murderous rampages and fighting people with pig masks, if I remember correctly. I don't know. It's more of a mood piece rather than some deep esoteric intellectual sort of let's analyze the deep sounds of the emotion in here. When we juxtapose what's happening on screen, let's say that the music is sad, but on stage there's happy moments. That's actually really fascinating from a viewer and audience participation experience. It makes us lean in slightly. Yeah. So now I see where we're going with this. We have this forward momentum. What's interesting is that even though it's bright and colorful and airy and energetic and enthusiastic, the actual propulsion of the piece is based on intensity and on drama and on tension. And you say to yourself, well, how can this piece have tension? This is a beautifully 1980s effervescent piece. And the way that we deduce that is by listening to the way that the melody thrusts us forward right here. So the melody is da 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 bo bo do 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 do. So that melody is actually indicating to us the emotional landscape of the situation that we are in. Feels very determined, focused, agitated maybe a little bit, and then on top of all of that you get the rhythm, and the rhythm is driving us forward. Da da bum 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 bum. So that melody is living within that rhythm, and it's causing this sense of forward propulsion. And even though we have the bright quality here, it doesn't detract or take away from the fact that it does feel like we are moving towards an objective. Yeah. You feel how this section is completely moved by the propulsion of the rhythm there. Bum, 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 bum. So we've had a set change at about 1:20, and now we're moving into this bop, bop, bop. So now it's all rhythmic. There's no real melody here right now. This is a propulsory piece, continuing that idea of having movement in rhythm, while what we're doing is resetting so that us as listeners can take a break, because otherwise it becomes a little repetitive and a little bit redundant. When we lean on the bass like that, we also create a sense of intrigue, mystery, a little bit of ooh, what's happening? And there's a little bit of drama in there as well. Yeah, I really like that. That actually, so that little like that was very much in the human voice range, in the upper male voice range, I'd say, and that really gave me a sense of that being the protagonist's like thought process, or the protagonist's like melody line. Ba ya da da. This whole section right here. It really feels like you're not going to stop me. You're not going to have a chance to get in the way. I find that kind of interesting. Now, clearly, this is music that's being used in a context. And so when we listen to it outside of the context, obviously there's a feeling of energy. It's satisfying to listen to. However, I would say that now, as I'm in it, this is one of those tracks that works abundantly well within a context of a video game, rather than being something that I would listen to like out of. I mean, I think I would listen to this on a drive. But I think sitting here at my desk experiencing this song, I don't think it's going to hit nearly as hard. And this is that thing about video games and video game music, is that there are certain tracks that really function really well outside of the context of a piece. And then which is not a negative per se. And then there are certain tracks like this one that I think really probably sell hard when they're listened to in context, which is actually intriguing me to listen to this in context, because I think like the context of it, or the mechanics of moving my controller and moving my character to do things would sort of spice this a little bit. It's not to say it's bad, but it's just a little bit repetitive. Yeah, like cascading note quality there has a little bit of desperation in it, a little bit of like, okay, what do I do? Where do I have to go? Obviously, this is all synthesizer, so like I'm a little limited in what I can talk about because I'm not a synth expert. But what I do know is notes and melody. And when you have da dum do, that feels like you feel like a tortured soul who has a job to do, and the reason why they're doing it is because they need to recoup whatever. There's like a loss of a relationship or something, a loss of or a pain in there, and so in order to bounce back from that, they have to go and do this thing, which I'm pretty sure I've seen a cutscene or gameplay, and it just seems like a bunch of killing. But anyway. I also really like that sound effect, because that feels like energy. That feels like a sort of resolve. It's weird. Synthesizer music is so interesting to me because of the way that it's created and structured, and how it can still elicit emotion, and that's the beauty of music anyway. But just like how there's little things like musical gestures that are so not in the like vernacular of musical understanding from a classical perspective, obviously, and that yet they can still elicit the same feelings and thoughts and stuff that we would feel if we listen to a classical piece. that's shockingly emotional. I think there's a lot of depth in there, and obviously while I can't necessarily break down the individual ways that song is created, what I can say is that there's obviously a drive in there. There's obviously a pursuit of something in there. There's obviously a focus, a determination, a wanting things to be different. And that's it's a super fun song. It's going to be a weird pivot, but I want to pivot to a game that I could not know less of, which is Lufia II, The Last Duel from the SNES. For those of you uninitiated, that is the Super Nintendo. Wow, what a fun trumpet melody. Ba da ba da ba da da. In accident, I actually found two pieces that are essentially the same energy-wise, but written and created in two extremely opposite and completely different ways. So this is interesting because as we start this piece, and we have this cascading arpeggiation, we get this horn, which I think the song is called The Last Duel. And so you do get a sense that like this is the moment. This is the moment. This is the day. Sorry. Much in the same way that we heard in the Hotline Miami track, the horn represents that forward momentum, the energy. Also, the arpeggiations are a natural movement that we hear, regardless of like 8-bit, 16-bit, like bit system, a MIDI system, whatever. What we're hearing is forward momentum and propulsion. And even though there's a little bit more melodic, ba ba da da ba da da ba ba ba, you still get a sense of rhythm and melody and intention, regardless of what the piece is. You hear that? Lots of rhythm in here, yeah? Now we're really picked up. Now, the difference between this track and the previous track is this has a little bit of a feeling of a back against the wall. That's like, oh shit, I am in a situation here. I have to push through. Like, I have to lean on my strength. I have to lean on my courage. Much in the same way that the Hotline Miami track was about like going forward, doing your job, getting what you needed to get. Here, there's more of a sense of drive. There's more of a sense of heroism. There's more of a sense of I am the hero of my story. And the trumpet, also being the instrument of choice there, is indicative of that because the trumpet's very involved in heralding new beginnings, heralding, you hear it a lot in the trumpet shall sound, ba-ba-bum, ba-ba-ba-bum. You hear it in Baroque music. We associate the military with the trumpet, the bugle call. So that trumpet automatically gives us a feeling of symbolism of journeying and moving forward. Gorgeous, and then we have a reset, but like that's such a beautiful melody, especially when we peak up at the top. That's incredibly welcoming, and it's a warm sound quality. It's a sound quality that is inviting, it's not warm per se in the sense that like it doesn't make us feel like but what it does make us feel in that warmth is a drive and an energy. And it's interesting to juxtapose this piece and the previous piece because they're very different, but ultimately the emotional motivations are sort of the same.
We're different, but we're the same.
And so there's this forward propulsion that occurs that is just sublime in this. And it really is satisfying to me as a listener because it's motivating. And then it's interesting too, because recaps are sort of like a thing where obviously there's a loop. But what's interesting to me is that after going through the journey of the first loop, when you rehear ba-da-da, ba-da-da, ba-da-da-ba-bo, there's an emotional shift. And so looping is interesting because when we first hear it, we're like, okay, no, that's really nice. And then when it comes back, you're like, okay, and you start to tune out. But actually, if you pay attention to a loop, the emotional stakes will often be different because you've already gone on the musical melodic journey. And so when you recap, you're actually either resetting and restarting that feeling of like, no, I need this, or you are listening to it in a different way. And so the context and subtext, even without the game, will mean something different when you rehear that original melody. Nice pickup there. Like, that's gorgeous. Da ba da 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 bo da ba ba. Right? Like, that just is like the soul crying out. Even in this sound sample, we are able to deduce the higher pitch really leads to a sense of galvanization and a sense of excitement. Yeah, that's fun. It's fun how those two tracks, even though they're completely different, there is a sort of through line with them in terms of their intention. Rhythm and melody are the building blocks of music. We can't have one without the other. However, when we have these pieces that are sort of at a certain tempo and a certain clip, and so the rhythm ends up being faster, there's something that happens to us intrinsically as humans that there's automatically a sense of motivation or sitting up out of your chair a little bit and paying attention. You know, it's interesting how tempo can cause different responses in people. And I mean, it's no different than if you listen to the tempo of a horse running on a track. There's a propulsion there. So last song of this little series is Tumult from Crimson Blaze, Dancing Blades from Etrian Odyssey. I have no clue what that is. So unironically, this is the same concept that I've been referencing in this entire video. However, the only difference is that it's a slower tempo. So the battle feels more bleak now because we get ba 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 ba, much more scary. We have the same instruments basically, but this is obviously orchestrated. But we do have these lower brass here that are, you know, the lower section of the trumpet. So the trumpet being the higher part of the brass, and this trombone and tuba and the French horn are a bit lower, mid-lower part of the brass. So even though the tempo is slightly slower, there's a little bit more desperation in here, but you do hear a sort of forward propulsion. You hear that? And the strings like that? Timpani swell? Wow. Big swell, sforzando. Nice stacking there. Creepy strings. And what's cool about all this is this is actually preamble till we get to the actual melodic line. Like, we're not going to sustain this kind of rhythmic propulsion for an entirety of a piece. It's impossible. This would be so incredibly boring. Emotionally, it's a totally different piece than what we've heard in the last two songs, especially if we go all the way back to the beginning of this video with Hotline Miami. What we're getting now is drama, tension, fear, concern, worry. Even though rhythmically we are moving forward at a quick pace, if you listen to the way that the structure is between the melody and the rhythm, this where you hear the drama and the tension in there. It's a different kind of tension than the other two tracks. More stacking and building. Listen to the rhythm and the strings there. The snare drum also is moving that rhythm. More of that. And then, you know, what's really cool about a piece like this is that you are getting all these other instruments in there. If that rhythm is a big stake, when you throw on all these different instruments that are sort of layered over top, basically for flavoring, what you're getting is spice. Ooh, a trombone would be really cool in this section because this would cause a little bit of tension, or we get the street creepy strings. Okay, well, let's throw on a little bit of cilantro or something. I don't know why you would put a cilantro on a street. And so the piece is really, really dramatic and very serious, but the rhythmic identity is actually not that dissimilar from the last two tracks. They've all been rhythmic in their own way. Love that. See, now we're about almost 2 minutes in, and even though this is a battle theme and it's clearly a serious battle, long, short, like that automatically is going to cause tension. But I would say is that now, I think in context it works better, but now I'm starting to get a little like, okay, like, is there a melody? Again, that's spice right there. A little bit of harmony. Nice. We have the full orchestra taking over that rhythm line. And so when we have the strings and the vibraphone and the marimba and the xylophone, and you have the brass also underneath on a what that does is now the tension is reaching its ultimate peak. Like now we are essentially climaxed in with the tension in the of the experience. It's a very different track from the other two in terms of its emotional stakes here. Now we pulled all the way back and we have never lost that propulsion in the strings though. Drum. See, now you get that tornado effect. The way those strings are moving, it's like a bee sting. Yeah, so this track is unrelenting. We've never let go of that rhythmic intensity. Even when we've pulled back like we just did a couple seconds ago, we have not it's just like, oh my god, okay. Now we've got the like Jaws thing. Snare drum comes in. Swell in the timpani there, on the gong. Listen to those horns. Now we're getting some sustained holding there. lot of brass here. More of that crunch dissonant tension as we swell. You hear it? You hear the swell? Hop! Swell, swell. We add the trumpets. Swell. And then we have a big recap. Note how even though we've heard that before, we've gone on such a crazy journey. It's not dissimilar to the Lufia II track. You actually will listen to something in a... Now, it's easy to tune out when you listen to, a second loop, because it's like, okay, well, I've already heard this. But at the same time, if you really allow it to sort of affect you, you can obsessively create a second context here. And even though this music is not different than what we heard before, it's still different contextually. And it's still different based on the emotional journey you went on for 4 minutes and 30 seconds prior to hearing the recap. Big string emphasis there with that snare drum in the background too. And actually, the melody really is in the trombone, or in the French horns there. That's actually kind of somber. Like that melodic idea. It's like, my God, what have we lost? We've lost everything. What are we going to do? And also the way you can point that out is that, is it possible that we've lost everything? That's a question. It ends up. It takes a leap up, a step up. Actually, it's a skip. It goes down. Oh no, you're right. We've lost everything. And then the rhythm is saying, no, we can't give up. And so that's a loop, and I'll pause there. But so you hear how three distinctly different pieces that I did not connect in any sort of way, and yet we can deliver and understand ideas of rhythm, intensity, motivation, essentially emotion, and reasons for these pieces existing in three different examples, and how those are connected. If you like this sort of stuff, well, there's tons more on the channel. Feel free to like, subscribe. I stream basically every day on Twitch and on YouTube thanks to multi-streaming, and I'll see you later.